Yeah, coming today for what I'm sure is going to be a exciting, challenging session around climate change. Just out of interest, how many people travel here today? Anyone walk? Untitled walk? Yeah. Fantastic. Anyone on the bike? Untitled. Yeah. Cycle dealer. I think someone did actually cycle those. Fantastic. Car share? Car share. Oh wow. That's very right. Plane? Anyone? Okay. Boat? Can't say Hipsy, was it by boat today?
Oh, it would have been nice.
And electric car. Fantastic. So that's a good start there. I'll pass straight over to Lou, who is going to introduce today. It is going to be interactive, so everyone needs to be up for a session where it's not going to be, you're not going to be listening, you can be doing as well. But at the end of it, hopefully we'll have a collective understanding of where we are with climate change and the huge challenge we've got.
Is it a climate emergency workshop or a climate and biodiversity workshop?
It will include elements of biodiversity. Okay? Right, I'll pass you over to Lou.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to take you through the agenda in just a second, but probably a good start to introduce ourselves. A few housekeeping rules to begin with. Just, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with this centre and been here before, but the loos, if you haven't found them already, are just out here down to the left. Ladies is second on the left and the gents is first on the left. In terms of if there's any fire issues, I believe that we meet in the car park outside. But hopefully we can talk about that. And you will notice you've got bits and pieces on your tables. At the moment you're not going to need those. Those are for exercise 1, so feel free just to leave those where they are at this point. And let me just introduce our team. Okay. Can everybody see this slides all right? Which I'm not actually. Mugshots. Okay, my name is Lucinda Brooke. Please call me Lou. I'm a senior consultant with Resource Futures, and I'm going to be leading the workshop today with Simon.
And I'm Simon Roberts. I'm the Chief Executive at the Centre for Sustainable Energy. I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. You can call me Sir or just Simon.
Excellent. And this is Siobhan.
I'm Siobhan, I'm a consultant at Resource Futures as well with Lou.
And Siobhan's going to be helping when we go around the tables on the exercise bits and pieces. Just a little bit so you know where we're from. So Resource Futures is an independent, non-profit distributing environmental consultancy. That's quite a mouthful. To get all those in. We're based in Bristol and we work with local authorities all over the UK. We've done carbon footprint analysis for DEFRA, for Scottish Government, some Waitrose co-ops and supermarkets. But our main field is we specialise in waste and community engagement as well. We run the Community Action Group Devon network, that's with Devon County Council. And we also have strong footprint in behaviour change, so we do behaviour change campaigns for authorities all over as well.
And the Centre for Sustainable Energy, we're based in Bristol. We're a national charity. We were set up in 1979 when 4 blokes got together in a pub on St Michael's Hill in Bristol and basically said sort of something should be done. I think would be the best way to describe what they were coming up with. And we sort of emerged out of that. And there are 3 things we sort of do as our kind of core activities. The first is we actually run quite a significant energy advice service for householders across Avon, Somerset, Dorset, Wiltshire. We work with some partners in Devon as well in support of some work for Western Power Distribution. But that's got a particular focus on supporting more vulnerable households to help build their energy resilience. We're working with sort of 10,000 households a year. We're also doing work in the sort of low carbon retrofit side, market development in the Bristol area. We also do a lot of work with communities and local authorities to help them really sort of think about what they can do in their own sphere of influence. We do that right around the country. We've got a number of national programmes that we're supported to run, funded by Lottery, various charitable foundations and so forth. And also we have a research and analysis team that do a lot of work around housing stock modelling for Government Department Bays, Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Department, but also the Committee on Climate Change, the Scottish and Welsh Governments, Ofgem and others in terms of understanding how the energy system works, what needs to change, what does and doesn't work about that, and to really develop some decision-making tools to help them do that. So we've got about 60 staff based in Bristol.
Thanks for that, Simon. Okay, this is what you're actually interested in. So what we're going to do today, so we're just going to go through, have a little bit of a warm-up exercise initially. We're then going to go into a bit of the background and context, and I know that some of the people in this room will be very well versed and absolutely steeped in all of the detail. This is an exercise really to get everybody on the same level playing field. So some of you will have to bear with us, others will hopefully learn a few things or gain a little bit of insight. We're then going to do a group exercise, and this is looking at what levers have you got as a council to influence and shape how we respond to the climate emergency. And also looking at what are the key stakeholder groups, so who might we want to get involved with to further that too. It's not an exercise that any of us can really tackle on our own. We're then going to break for lunch, 45 minutes, so hopefully that's going to be enough time. We're then going to give you an insight into what some of the other councils are doing. So that will give you an idea of what's going on across the country in different places. Before going into another exercise where we're asking you guys to have a think and work on our direction, the direction for South Hams and West Devon, and what we would like to achieve. We then plan to bring it all together, and hopefully we'll be in a better place to tackle the climate emergency response and declaration. So, key objectives for today. Number one, about putting everybody on that level playing field. Number two, we have to accept we're not going to solve it all in 5 hours. So it's really just about getting that ball rolling to consider what our role should be. But also, as many of you are aware, the Devon Carbon Plan is being produced, and we need to be ready when that comes out to work out how we're going to fit into that. We're probably going to surface some opportunities and some of the challenges that we need to grapple with, and just essentially be in a better position to address this climate emergency. So really excited to hear that some of you biked, some of you shared cars and came in your electric vehicles. It's enough from us. What I'd like you to do is just have a little think about all the things that you've done since you woke up this morning, and think of those actions, which of those left a carbon footprint. So I have a nasty habit to get up in the morning and can't help but turn my phone on and just check Twitter to see if any very global politicians have been sending out any crazy tweets overnight. And naturally, everybody will have various routines they go through in the morning. I'd just like you to turn to the person next to you and just take two minutes or so, have a little chat about the actions that you've taken and what might have left. Okay, so did any of you hear anything you weren't expecting to hear? So what kind of things did you hear?
Kettle on, cup of tea.
Kettle on, cup of tea, stable.
Showers.
Yeah.
Original microwave. Hot washing in.
Not washing it.
Cleaning my teeth in the
Yeah. Getting the tap on.
They're cleaning the teeth in the shower, aren't they?
Yeah.
But very soothing.
Somebody on our open day had committed to flushing the loo with the bathwater, haven't they? Which we thought was quite impressive in terms of saving their carbon footprint.
But in the shower,
What about what you ate for breakfast?
toaster.
I just had a banana here.
Well, I was thinking about the food rather than the method of the toaster, obviously, but
Yeah, but you have to
harvest and package and process and package and transport the food. That we had cereal. We did think about that, how much energy had gone into transporting it. And we also used our cars to go and buy it in the first place from the supermarket.
So I got my salmon out of the freezer, which was asked, was it sustainable salmon? Well, it was wild salmon, but it was farmed, well, it was got from the Pacific, which had been got by a Chinese fleet, and it was frozen, so if you think about that. Yeah.
And also opening the freezer, having it cool again as soon as you shut the door. The lights.
The packaging on my breakfast has to be transported, waste in terms of waste. So you've got the big galopper machine picking that up.
Absolutely.
That's a technical term, I think, isn't it?
Galopper machine.
Yeah. Then you need to throw an old banana away or any of that. Food waste is a huge issue.
The process of cleaning the water that goes into the tap.
But what might the chicken have done that would create a carbon footprint?
Chicken was fine if you don't run around on the grass.
But if you buy food for chicken, the corn and the layers of pellets and that sort of stuff.
Okay, so pretty much almost everything we do has a carbon footprint from the minute we get there. And by the time we even get to 9 o'clock, we've already left a significant footprint. So, has anybody actually made any efforts to change any of their behaviours thinking about it? Out of interest?
Ultimately, electricity, no renewable energy electricity.
Excellent.
I've stopped buying plastic packaging, pretty much, in my food.
Brilliant.
I try and use electricity in the morning when my PV panels are getting most electricity, so kettle, washing machine, things like that.
You convinced me I should lay in bed all day.
And what would you do today? Okay, thanks. Okay, so now I'm just going to take you through some of the facts and figures to give you some of the background. So no surprises here. This is a chart provided by NASA, and it looks at our global mean surface temperature since the 1880s. And you can already see, based on this data, that since the difference between the highest mean surface temperature and the lowest is already a degree. So
can you expand the left-hand column, because I'm going to jump to read that. How many degrees is that?
This is the temperature anomaly. Sorry, up here?
Well, what is the range of degrees from top to bottom?
0.6 to minus 0.4.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right, 1 degree.
Yeah, 1 degree. Yeah. But it really is just showing the trajectory.
Yeah.
So this is the global risks landscape, and on this global risk landscape produced by the World Economic Forum, you can see things like unexpected migration, terrorist attacks, asset bubbles in a major economy. So there's lots of things on here, and they're scattered all over. What is measured here is the impact against the likelihood of this incident happening. And what you can see is that all of the environmental factors, which are green here, are the ones that are in the top right-hand quadrant, and extreme weather at the top. Here, and hopefully you'll see the lines here. So this is our nationally determined contributions on a global scale. So according to current policies, this is the direction we're headed. And if we want to limit to the 2-degree range, then you can see that we need to drop by approximately a fifth. We need to reduce our carbon emissions. This is a 2-degree pathway. And to drop to 1.5 degrees, we're looking at more about cutting in half. So from 50 down to more like 25 on this chart. This is provided by the UN Environment and underpinned by the IPCC. So, as we can see, it's getting more urgent. The IPCC actually projects that we've got 12 years to limit to 1.5 degrees. And I've picked out here just some of the examples of the difference between 1.5 and 2. So, for example, at 2 degrees, an additional 420 million people would be exposed to extreme heat waves. we're looking at irreversible loss of ecosystems versus severe and widespread. And here, Arctic sea ice, so in terms of that disappearing, we're looking at that being once every 10 years versus once every century. So there's a big gap between 1.5 and 2, and hence why this challenge is significant. And looking at the actual carbon budget, we have met our first 2 carbon budgets, but we're actually projected not to reach the next one, which is in 2023. It's both broken down into 5, and you have within that period that amount of carbon that you are allowed to emit.
You said we, do you mean the UK?
This is, no, I mean globally. Okay, so just looking at the legislative context. So the UK government passed the Climate Change Act in 2008, and that act essentially was requiring our emissions to be recorded and to act on it to reduce and prepare for those risks. So we had the legal commitment, which has now just been updated. It was essentially to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to reduce by 80%. It's now to net zero. So CO2 is about 80% of our greenhouse gas footprint. Now part of that was setting up the Committee on Climate Change. And just to understand the role of that Committee on Climate Change, they are an independent organisation. The people within that committee are, for example, academics, scientists, engineers, and people from business. And their role is actually to ensure that the targets that are being set are properly evidence-based and independently assessed. And they advise the government on what progress has been made and what path we should be taking in the future. So part of that Climate Change Act also is a requirement to respond. The government had to produce a set of policies and proposals for how they're actually going to meet those targets. And that led to this is the most recent, the Clean Growth Strategy, which was produced in 2017. And that explains how we're going to meet those carbon budgets. Yeah.
Can I just ask a quick question, please? The legislation from the government is to reduce carbon emissions to zero by 2050.
Yes.
Many councils have picked, for some reason, 2030.
Yes.
At some point, could you cover the reason for whether 2030 or 2050 is more reasonable to get to that?
I think it's going to be difficult to unpick that, to be honest. I think a lot of the councils are now finding there has been evidence that has been put out that says that 2050 is too late. Hence why you've had a number of councils bringing that forward, but some of them have made these different declarations without actually looking into all the figures and working out whether that's achievable. And that's why I think you guys have actually done it differently, and you haven't committed to that target yet. You're actually looking to see, well, what are our numbers too. I mean, reporting is a bit of a tricky thing anyway, because how we report, we have a certain way of reporting, and there are quite a few things that are excluded from that. So there is a balance between what we report on and what we actually do, because some figures are captured, and some figures, for example, in all of the UK emissions, all of the things that we buy, if I bought that and it was produced in China, that's in China's carbon budget. And that's why when you see the huge graphs with China looking like it's all their responsibility, that's probably, a lot of that is driven because we're buying the products that they produce. And so that's captured in their numbers. So when we commit to something, we probably need to have a think about, I'll come on to that in the councils about what some people are committed to.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
Can I, before we get into that, if we have an argument today about whether it should be 2030 or 2050 or 2040, we're having the wrong conversation. Because you have to do the same things. It's just a question of how quickly you can get them done. Because 2050 is really difficult anyway, and requires the same types of change in society. The idea, well, that's 20 years off, it'll be fine. Something will come along. It's been the attitude we've had for quite a long time in relation to this. So I think let's not get too worked up about whether it's 2030, 2050. The Devon Carbon Plan will help to understand that, because the analysis is looking at what sort of changes would be needed, how quickly they could happen in Devon. but there are some huge challenges in there, and the main message is we've got to do stuff quicker, start doing things we haven't been doing yet, stop doing some things we have been doing which are really creating problems, and shift the way we think about how we live in our society. So I'd really, there's some discussion you guys will need to have during the process of where you put that target. But if you're focused on the end point rather than the starting point, you're probably starting at the wrong end of the process.
No, I'm not.
And I'm not saying you are, but I think it's a very valid question, and one that a lot of councils are sort of grappling with as they start to do the analytics to sort of underpin their plan. Some of these things start to look harder maybe than they thought when they signed up, but that's the key issue about what it drives for, what change it drives. And if you aim for 2030 and hit 2040, brilliant. If you aim for 2050, you'll miss it by miles. Because a lot of the changes need to happen now, because we're doing things now which will be in place in 2050, building new buildings. Current rate to get to net zero, we have to retrofit quite a lot of those to get so that they can be. So it does change what we need to think about, and that's what we're going to focus on today. How does it change the way we need to think about things? What is it we can do that we can kind of really accelerate and change and move it forward? So as I say, if we spend the day arguing over whether it should be 2030 or 2050, then we're going to waste our time, I think might be the best answer. But it is a very valid question, and I'm not trying to skid it, but I want to focus on what it is we think we can do and what levers we can pull and what we understand can be done and how quickly. And some of that you need other things happening from national government as well, because you're not exactly flooded with resources, but also in terms of some of the policy frameworks you're working in that decide how the electricity system works, you've got only a limited amount of influence over. So there's a kind of, we're going to try and help you really think that through, so that when you come to talk with your officers, you can give them, you can check whether they're asking the right questions as well, and also kind of help think that through. But it's a really important question.
Do you know if the statistics include air travel and shipping, for example, if it's broken down into countries to be international?
They work to an imaginary line. Everything international, when they pass that imaginary line, is not counted. But okay, is that all right to move on? So the Clean Growth Technology UK emissions reductions target was produced by the UK Science and Technology Select Committee, and I've just pulled this out because it's most recent, I think it was July of this year, and one of the recommendations in that is actually putting a statutory duty on local councils by Green Week 2020, which is June of next year, to develop emissions reductions plans. So, regardless of the science, there's actually, it's more than likely that a statutory responsibility is coming down the line. You'll be pleased to know that part of those recommendations is also introducing centralised support and low-cost, long-term finance to support that. Now, at the moment, as I say, this is a paper. It's nothing signed and sealed, but that's the general trajectory. A number of other bills in play. There is a decarbonisation and economic strategy bill, but in all likelihood, it's not looking like that one's going to get through. The environment bill probably will get through in some shape or another, and in its current form, it points out that local authorities could be held to account for their local environmental standards. Things like air quality, nature, waste and water. So that comes into biodiversity and many other things. So the planning context is also very relevant. So the National Planning Framework, for example, states that planning should shape places in ways that contribute to radical reductions in emissions. So it's in the National Planning Framework, it's in lots of other planning legislation, and that is what has led Client Earth. I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with Client Earth, but they have currently put 100 local authorities on notice of litigation on the basis that their local plans do not sufficiently provide evidence-based detail on how they will meet the carbon targets. And they've cited a number of different acts, whether it's the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act and other planning bills. So I believe that they actually want to work in a positive vein and do want to encourage change, but there is that threat of litigation there. These are a number of resources. I believe these are, I'm not going to go into them, but they're things that you could draw on. They're there, and I believe they want to share them, so they could actually be useful. And the Green Building Council also has a policy playbook there. I am also aware that you have just come to the end of your joint local plan for now, but it's something to be aware of. Okay, so how have local authorities responded? We're now at over 50% of local authorities that have declared a climate emergency. That's 220 out of 408. So the vast majority are doing something in this space. What have we done locally? Just a bit of context. It was the 21st of February this year that Devon County Council declared a climate emergency and formed the DCERG, which I know a number of you actually sit on. And West Devon followed shortly after on the 21st, and then you guys endorsed the Devon Climate Declaration, which we're just going to go on to in a second, followed by Southampton on the 25th of July. So this year has been a big year for that. So the Devon Climate Declaration, it's really quite bold, isn't it? It's an ambitious declaration that, this is what really struck me, that it's covering all of Devon. So it's not just looking about the council's direct responsibility and the direct footprint, but it includes those people who live, work in and visit our county, and the businesses as well who are based and operate here. So it's really quite wide-reaching. And one of the points talks about leading through collective action, innovation and influence. So it's a bold statement, and part of that, and central to that, is the production of the Devon Carbon Plan. So the Devon Carbon Plan, they are putting together numbers, and it's a very consultative process that they are working on. And also one other factor is also about lobbying government to increase resources and funding, because clearly that's going to be a challenge. So just to understand the Devon Carbon Plan timeline, we are here. The draft plan currently is due to come out in April 2020, but I do believe that's probably going to slip. So it might be a little bit later. With the final plan, late next year. So it's actually, we've got a whole year before that's going to be signed off. So I imagine some information will come through in dribs and drabs, but we need to be kind of working in tandem with that.
Lou?
Yeah.
Lou, may I just ask, you said on your previous slide about how a lot of it will be recording and things like that. So to get the information, is there sort of talk that they may change some of the questions on the census, because that is due fairly soon, to get their recording, because I can't see how you're going to record every citizen.
Yeah. I don't know, but that's probably Drew sits on the, there you are, you sit on the tactical group, don't you, Drew? So maybe that's a
yeah, I mean, at the
conversation to be
moment,
had.
the 12 sectors that are forming the Devon Carbon Plan, they haven't really fleshed out exactly what's going to happen under those, but certainly in terms of gathering information, that'll be a key part of the process. But I don't know the specific answer to that question at this stage.
That just seems logical to me.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to struggle to see this, I'm afraid, but that's just how the stakeholder groups fit together. At the moment, we've got the strategic and tactical groups up here, and then the task force is the ones that are actually going to put together the plan, and that is formed from academics, again, science, but also community and charity-based organisations, so senior people within those as well. And there's an awful lot of consultation built in through citizens' assemblies, but I guess what's not clear yet is quite how that will be rolled out through the district and borough councils. So there will need to be some crossover in order for that citizens' assembly process and public consultation to be representative of what is quite a diverse area. Let's say Devon is obviously huge. So they will have thematic hearings, and these guys are working on the mitigation side.